I'm 31, female, living in Chicago. I've been working as an event planner for nearly a decade now. Big weddings, corporate retreats, fundraisers, you name it. I'm not famous or anything, but I do well. Well enough to have my own place, pay for therapy I never used, and take a few guilt trips back home once in a while. Last Christmas was the first time in 3 years that I made the trip back to my hometown. Flights were cheap and I had the time, so I figured, why not? I'd bring good wine, thoughtful gifts, maybe even start fresh. I thought enough time had passed. I got in late on the 23rd. My mom opened the door and barely looked up from her phone before muttering, "Finally decided to show up, huh?" Not even a hug, just that. My dad appeared behind her a few seconds later, gave a weird half smile, and said something about how cold it's been lately. Dean, my younger brother, walked in from the kitchen with a beer and yelled, "Look who ditched her big city clients to grace us with her presence." His fiancée, Jules, followed close behind. She was holding their baby and still found a way to smirk. Wow, Lila, I almost forgot what you looked like. We weren't even 5 minutes in. Christmas Eve was mostly tense small talk. I spent the day setting the table, helping with prep, offering help that no one took. Jules dominated every conversation, showing off baby photos and correcting Dean's stories mid-sentence. My parents were all over the baby, talking to her like she'd won the Nobel Prize just for existing. I mostly stayed quiet. The gift exchange happened after dinner. Everyone had fancy wrapping, big boxes, and expensive scents trailing behind the tape. Dean gave Mom a spa day package. Jules got Dad a whiskey tasting subscription. When it was my turn, I opened a reused gift bag with a chipped mug inside. It said, "World's okayest sister," still had the clearance sticker on the bottom. Nobody laughed, just silence. Then Dean said, "Thought it'd match your vibe." I had spent weeks buying everyone gifts that meant something. Framed photos, a rare record Dad mentioned in passing, a vintage cookbook Mom used to talk about, a handmade baby blanket for Sadie. Barely a nod from anyone. They went straight back to talking over each other. During dinner, I mentioned how my team pulled off a 500 guest charity gala in under 2 weeks. No bragging, just sharing. Dean cut in with, "Some people plan parties, some people work real jobs." Then came the moment that flipped the table, figuratively. My mom took a sip of wine, looked at me across the roast, and said, "Well, at least this year you didn't cry like when your fiancé dumped you on Christmas." I didn't even have time to process it before Dean burst out laughing. Then Jules joined. Even my dad chuckled. Jules wasn't even around back then. She laughed anyway, like it was part of some annual skit. I didn't say a word. I stood up, walked to what used to be my bedroom. It's mostly storage now. Boxes, forgotten trophies, a dusty bookshelf. I closed the door and let the silence crash in. They didn't check on me. I laid on the old twin bed, listening to them pop a new bottle of wine and start a game of charades. Someone shouted a clue. Everyone laughed. It was like I was never in the house to begin with. At 10:47 p.m., I sent one message to the family group chat. Just one line, "Thanks for the hospitality. Heading back early tomorrow." No one replied. I left the next morning at 5 a.m. No breakfast, no goodbyes. Just a frost-covered windshield, a half tank of gas, and 4 hours of silence back to Chicago. I deleted the group chat before I even got out of town. 5 years ago, I was engaged to someone I thought I'd marry. He cheated on me with a mutual friend on Christmas Eve. What I didn't know back then was that Dean knew. He told our cousin, who told Jules. My mom found out 2 days later. Not a single person thought I should be told. They just watched it unravel, then laughed about it years later like it was a sitcom plot. That's when it clicked. They weren't clueless. They didn't forget. They just thought my pain was funny, like it made them feel better, watching me stumble. I used to think maybe I just wasn't easy to connect with. Maybe I made myself hard to love. No, I just made it too easy to ignore. On that drive home, while I passed frozen fields and radio static, I decided something. If they wanted to keep laughing at my pain, fine. But the next time they gathered around my table, the jokes wouldn't be at my expense. They'd be surrounded by every single thing they hoped I'd forget. Every smile would hide a reminder. Every toast would carry a sting. They wanted to turn my holidays into a punchline. Now I was going to turn every holiday into something they'd never be able to laugh about again. A month after I got back from that Christmas, I started planning Easter. Not just a lunch or a basic brunch, an event. The kind I'd throw for a high-end client. I made a digital invite with RSVP links, menu previews, assigned valet instructions for the older guests, and even included a subtle dress code, spring elegance. No one had ever visited my place before, not even once. But surprisingly, they all accepted. Dean replied first. He said he and Jules were excited to bring baby Sadie. My mom confirmed within an hour. My dad's RSVP came through in all caps. Jules just hearted the invite like it was a social media post. They showed up on Easter morning exactly on time. My apartment was set like a magazine spread. Fresh peonies on the table, personalized menus at each seat, and soft jazz playing in the background. I'd hired a small catering team, had a designated coat area, and even arranged a stroller-friendly space for Sadie near the window. The first thing my mom did was look around and mutter, "Fancy." Jules laughed and said the kitchen smelled like a 5-star hotel. Dean walked straight over to the mimosa bar and poured himself a triple. I welcomed everyone, then casually mentioned the Easter egg hunt for adults. They thought I was joking, until I handed them color-coded maps and baskets. There were 20 eggs scattered around the apartment, each with handwritten notes inside. The first one my mom opened said, "Remember when you framed my 5th grade art award, but spelled my name wrong?" She laughed awkwardly and tucked it into her purse. Dean opened one that read, "Who told Grandma I was failing math in 10th grade," before I got home to tell her myself. He shrugged it off, but I saw his face twitch. Jules opened an egg that just said, "Just like that time you said I was too intense before even knowing me." She turned to Dean, who avoided eye contact. Brunch was plated and served by noon. Seared salmon, spring risotto, lemon tarts for dessert. Everyone pretended like they were used to this kind of setting. The gift bags at each plate were neatly tied with satin ribbon. Inside, gourmet chocolates with wrappers that read things like, "Not all scars are visible. Some just get reshared at family dinners." We remember the birthdays we ignore. Forgiveness isn't free. Sometimes it costs brunch. No one commented out loud, but Jules kept reading hers over and over. Dean unwrapped a chocolate, stared at the quote, then just ate it without a word. There was one seat at the table that stayed empty. The name card read for the ghost of support. My mom noticed and raised an eyebrow. I ignored it and offered more rows. As the meal went on, I steered the conversation toward a get-to-know-you style QA. I asked my mom if she ever worried during that brief time 5 years ago when they almost lost the house. Everyone froze for a second before she recovered with a tight laugh. My dad sipped his wine like it was water. Dean tried to change the subject by asking about one of my clients. I answered, then pivoted to Jules and said I'd always wondered how she found out about my fiancé cheating before I did. She blinked fast and said she overheard it from someone. Then she paused. She looked around the room like she suddenly realized where she was and said, too quickly, I was the one who told everyone. That night, before you showed up. I smiled, nodded, and passed the bread. After dessert, my mom asked why I didn't include a prayer before eating. I told her I didn't think we were the kind of family that honored traditions. She said nothing after that. As the meal wrapped up, my dad raised a toast. He said something vague about forgiveness and moving forward. I clinked glasses with everyone and smiled, fingers crossed under the table. They left just after 3. Jules lingered at the door while buckling Sadie into her stroller and said, "You're really good at making people feel things." Then she walked out. Dean sent a thank you email the next morning. Not a text, not a call, just an email. He said the brunch was surprisingly elegant and some elements were unexpected. He didn't mention the eggs, or the quotes, or the missing place card. I didn't go for revenge that day. I didn't yell. I didn't confront. I just told the truth in packaging they couldn't return. Thanksgiving would be next. And this time I had something even better planned. A retreat, a memory wall, and a game they'd never want to play again. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, I booked a cozy rental lodge upstate that looked straight out of a lifestyle magazine. Wood beams, fireplace, big dining table, wraparound porch, the works. I sent the family a formal invitation through a custom design site. The theme was Rustic Family Thanksgiving Retreat. I added that I'd be covering all expenses so no one could use money or time as an excuse. My mom called 2 days later and asked why I was going through so much trouble all of a sudden. I told her it was just time to bring the family together again. Let's make some new memories, I said. Everyone arrived the night before Thanksgiving. I'd arranged rooms in advance and labeled each door with their names. Inside each room, cozy robes, slippers, a tiny gratitude notebook, and a list of the weekend's activities. The first thing they noticed was the wall of thanks I'd put up in the main room. It was a giant corkboard with string lights. Everyone was asked to pin up memories they were grateful for. I went first. Thanks for teaching me independence by forgetting my graduation. Thanks for building my confidence by leaving me out of the cousin trip. Thanks for showing me how strong I could be by never showing up. My mom stood in front of the wall for a while and didn't say anything. Dinner was served family style. I hired a chef who prepped the food but made it look home-cooked. Cranberry glazed turkey, brown butter mashed potatoes, apple pie with spiced whipped cream. While we ate, I made sure the seating chart did its job. Mom sat next to Dean, who hadn't spoken to her directly since Easter. Jules sat across from me, next to my dad, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. After dessert, I brought out a game I made myself. It looked like a normal deck of cards, but everyone had a personalized question. We played in turns. Dean pulled, "What's something you regret never apologizing for?" He tried to pass. I said skipping meant a penalty drink. He drank. Jules pulled, "Which lie hurt someone you love, and why did you tell it?" She laughed it off, but her eyes darted to Dean. My mom's card said, "What family moment haunts you, and why did you pretend it didn't matter?" She read it out loud, placed it face down, and reached for her wine. And then someone brought up college. I think it was during a card asking about who covered for someone's mistake. Dean froze. That was the moment. I asked casually, "Remember when you told everyone I dropped out but didn't mention you failed your finals and needed a distraction?" Dean snapped. Voice raised, face red, arms waving. Said I was twisting things. I let him rant until he ran out of steam. Then I handed him a napkin and suggested he write his own version of events down if mine was so wrong. Jules tried to cool things down. I queued up a trivia round I'd prepared, things we've said, a mix of real quotes from past years. Each person had to guess who said what. I played an old voicemail I'd saved. It was Jules, on speaker. "Dean's family is like a sitcom with no laugh track. Just awkward pauses and food you pretend to like." Jules blinked fast and said it was a joke. No one laughed. My mom barely spoke the rest of the night. She sat still, glass in hand, just watching. I could tell she was trying to sort through all the little details, the eggs from Easter, the gift bags, the name cards. This was the part where the pattern started showing up. The next morning, I accidentally pulled out an old scrapbook while rearranging things in the common room. It was labeled Happy Memories in glitter letters. Inside were photos, some cut at the edge, missing me entirely. Some were from parties I didn't know happened. One showed the family at a lake trip I'd apparently opted out of, except I'd never even been invited. Each photo had little captions I wrote on sticky notes, apparently not enough room in the car. I was sick, or so they said. Funny how I found this in the basement box marked junk. My dad finally stepped in, said I was being too dramatic, that these were old things and I was choosing to see them negatively. I nodded, changed the subject, passed him another plate of pie. That night, Dean came into the kitchen while I was packing up leftovers. He asked if I was doing all this on purpose. I asked if he remembered how it felt to walk on eggshells. He said yes. I told him I didn't like it either. Later, Jules tried to joke that her own family was crazy too. I didn't laugh. I just told her at least her family didn't laugh while she cried on Christmas. They all left early the next morning. Said the forecast showed snow coming. No snow came. I watched their SUV roll down the gravel driveway from the lodge window while I sipped my coffee. Then I opened my planner. On the next page, holiday vengeance schedule circled in red, Christmas Eve, ghosts of family past. This year, Christmas at my place came with a theme, Christmas Nostalgia Night. I sent invites with gold trim and soft vintage fonts, calling it a memory-filled evening to reconnect. The wording was warm. The event? Not so much. I swapped the usual Christmas tree for something I called the shadow tree. No lights, no garlands, just black and white photos clipped to the branches. Some were from family holidays, others from random moments. In almost all of them, I was either cropped out or blurred in the background. One had me halfway behind a curtain while everyone else posed. The ornaments were custom made. Each one had a little tag, Missed Recital. Voicemail at 11:59 p.m. Art show RSVP, ignored. Birthday text, seen, not answered. On the record player, soft carols played in minor keys, slow, stripped-down covers. Mixed in between tracks were audio clips, a voicemail I left that no one returned, a background recording of a family dinner where I wasn't spoken to once, and a short clip of Dean imitating me crying. That one came from a saved group call years ago. Everyone showed up around 6. My loft was candlelit, quiet, and set for dinner. Dean walked in first, paused at the tree, and let out a soft wow like he wasn't sure if it was a joke. Jules clutched Sadie and immediately started checking for a high chair. My mom walked straight to the wine. No one said anything for the first 20 minutes. They circled the room, looking at the framed photos and the way the decorations felt more like a museum than a home. The wall by the fireplace held printed quotes from family emails and group chats, word for word, including the ones they didn't think I saw. Once everyone sat down, I handed out boxes. Inside each one, a Christmas time capsule. Dean's had a fake college report card with a big red F and intro to accountability. Jules got a flash drive labeled Whispers and Weddings. My mom's box held a copy of the pawn ticket for a necklace she gave me at age 12, one she later sold accidentally. My dad's was simple, a blank photo frame with a sticky note that read, "Can you find one of us together?" Dinner was roasted duck with cranberry glaze, parmesan risotto, and citrus salad. No small talk, just forks, knives, and silence until I raised my glass and toasted, to memories that never go away, no matter how much you try to forget them. No one clapped. My dad cleared his throat. Jules looked down. Dean pushed his food around the plate. As dessert came out, peppermint mousse with crushed pistachio, I handed out little booklets. Soft covers, hand-stitched, titled, "The Girl Who Didn't Matter." Inside was a short story. A girl who watched her family celebrate without her, who was always told she was too sensitive, who grew up believing love had to be earned with silence. It wasn't subtle. By the third page, my dad set his copy down and called the night mean-spirited. I looked at him and said, "I thought I was just sharing my truth, like you all did last Christmas." My mom snapped. She said I was making the holiday about myself. I replied, "You made it about me the second you laughed when I cried." Jules stood, holding Sadie, and said the baby was overstimulated. Dean followed her out, grabbing their coats without looking at me. My dad stayed behind for a minute, said he'd help clean. I told him not to. This was the last time I'd host. Later that night, my phone buzzed. And the message from my mom, "You've made your point. I hope you're satisfied." I didn't respond. I walked over to the wall where I kept my holiday planner, the one I'd scribbled on since January. Later, I tore it down, dropped it in the trash. All except one page. I circled the next date in red, Mother's Day. I sent one invite. No group message, no CC'd family. Just a single cream-colored card hand-delivered by courier. The envelope was sealed in wax, addressed to my mother in perfect cursive. Inside, an invitation to an intimate mother-daughter tea at Rosegate Estate. Rosegate wasn't a random venue. Years ago, it was the same estate where my mom skipped my middle school drama performance to attend a garden fundraiser. I had stood backstage in costume, waiting. She posted pictures of herself that night in a green satin dress. On Mother's Day morning, I wore a replica of that exact dress. Same cut, same shade. I greeted her at the front gate of the mansion with a smile and a program printed on textured cardstock. It listed our tea schedule, the menu, and a brief note for all the moments that shaped us. The tables were set on the back terrace. White cloths, rose-colored glasses, tiered trays of tea sandwiches. Classical piano played softly nearby. We were surrounded by other mothers and daughters, most chatting and laughing. Ours was the only table with silence. She complimented the setup, called it elaborate. I agreed. So were the excuses growing up, I added while pouring her tea. Each menu item had a name. The forgotten cupcake, a strawberry scone. The missed rehearsal tart, mini spinach quiche. Neglect, a la mode. Vanilla cream puffs with cold espresso drizzle. She noticed, asked if I was trying to make a point. I told her I was simply revisiting old recipes. During the second course, I pulled out a small gift box and slid it across the table. Inside was a photo album titled Almost. It was filled with old flyers, awards, and certificates. A dance recital program with her name listed under will attend. A science fair ribbon. A college event marked parents welcome. Each had a sticky note. You said you'd be there. You promised this time. You left early. By the time dessert was served, I stood up and read a letter I'd written. It started off sweet. I thanked her for her strength, her style, her work ethic. Then I moved into the second paragraph. Thank you for teaching me that silence cuts deeper than any punishment. Thank you for showing me what it feels like to clap with one hand. Thank you for always choosing somewhere else to be. She shifted in her seat. Other guests nearby began to glance over. She asked me to sit down, said we could talk about this later. I said later never came, not on birthdays, not after breakups, not on Christmas 5 months ago. I ended with, I've tried every form of love, approval, distance, silence, humor. But I finally realized the only thing that got your attention was mirroring you. So here we are. She stood up mid-sentence, left her napkin on the table and walked off without saying goodbye. A server came over, confused, asked if everything was okay. I smiled. She just remembered something urgent, like she always does. I paid the bill. Tip tipped extra, left the gift album in its box, and tucked a card underneath. The envelope read, "You were always excellent at leaving first." That night, I went home and pulled out my planner. On the page labeled holidays that needed fixing, I crossed out Mother's Day with a red pen. Then I flipped to the next tab, Father's Day, the peacemaker's price. For Father's Day, I didn't plan a brunch or a retreat, just a simple game night at my apartment. I sent my dad a handwritten card, inviting him over for a relaxed evening of drinks, nostalgia, and games. He replied with a thumbs up emoji. He arrived right on time. I had his favorite bourbon ready, poured over one big cube. On the coffee table sat a custom board game I made myself, hand-painted tiles, a spinner, and a stack of cards marked Truth and Penalty. The name of the game, Decisions, Consequences. We played a few warm-up rounds first. Easy questions. What's your favorite memory from childhood? Who's the funniest in the family? He answered without hesitation, even laughed a little. I matched his tone, kept it light. Then the spinner landed on the first red tile, Truth or Admit. He picked a card. It read, "Name a time you stood by while someone hurt me," and said nothing. He gave a short chuckle. That's heavy. I didn't react, just waited. He skipped and took the penalty, refill your drink and lose your next turn. The next time he landed on red, the card asked, "Why didn't you speak up when Mom mocked me about my breakup?" Then another, "Why did you always tell me to let it go when Dean embarrassed me in front of others?" He leaned back, set his glass down slowly, said he was just trying to keep peace, that he didn't want to make things worse. I told him peace without fairness isn't peace. It's just quiet for the ones already winning. I reached into a nearby drawer and took out a small speaker, played a clip from an old home video. It was my birthday. You could hear my mom telling a joke about me crying over a lost competition. The camera wasn't on me, but the mic picked up my voice, soft and upset. The family laughed over it. My dad rubbed his eyes, said he didn't realize it stayed with me, that he thought I forgot. I told him I didn't forget. He just wasn't looking. We kept playing. He landed on another red tile. This one asked him to name 3 memories where I looked genuinely happy, and he felt proud of me. He sat quietly for a while, said my college graduation, then paused, said he almost didn't make it that day, work emergency. But he came late and got a photo. He couldn't name another. The room stayed quiet. I told him I didn't hate him. I wasn't angry like I used to be, but I couldn't let him keep hiding behind trying his best. That phrase had been a shield for too long. It kept him comfortable while I stayed bruised. He didn't argue. He just looked older than I remembered. He stood up, thanked me for the drink, and said he should head out. I walked him to the door. No hug, no anger, just a quiet exit. I watched from my window as he got in his car, started the engine, and pulled away without checking his phone once. I turned off the lights, cleaned up the game board, and crossed off one more date from my planner. Only one holiday left. And this time, they weren't on the guest list. It was snowing when I woke up. 1 year to the day since the Christmas dinner where they all laughed while I sat frozen. No RSVP plinks this time. No theme meals. No guest list in my family's inbox. I'd already hosted every holiday that needed fixing. Instead, I cooked dinner for 6. Not family by blood, but people who showed up. Colleagues who stayed late without being asked. A former client who became a friend. My neighbor from upstairs who once knocked on my door because she hadn't seen my lights on and got worried. The table was set for the chosen few. Place cards handwritten in gold ink. The center had small white candles and a bowl of floating cranberries. Everyone else got crystal glasses and a linen napkin. I poured my soup into the chipped mug from last year, the one they regifted with the clearance sticker still on. I didn't polish it. I didn't hide the chip. It was exactly as they gave it. That morning, Dean had texted, "What's the plan this year?" I didn't answer, just deleted the thread. A few hours later, my mom sent a photo. A wrapped box under their tree labeled Lila. No caption. No apology. I opened it, looked at it for a second, and tapped read before deleting that too. My dad stayed quiet. Dinner with the people who did show up was warm. They laughed. They passed dishes with outside comments, toasted to second chances and a real connection. Someone said, "Here's to the family we choose." Everyone clinked glasses. No one asked about my real family. After dessert, I pulled out a letter, the one my mom sent after Father's Day. It had a long intro, then some indirect guilt tripping, and ended with "You'll understand one day when you're a mother." I fed each page into the fire, one by one. No rush. That night, another message came from Dean. "So are you just done with us then?" I didn't open the rest. Just hit delete. I only printed one holiday card this year. It was addressed to myself. Front, to the girl they overlooked. Inside, not anymore. Later, I went for a walk with my guests. The sidewalks were quiet. Windows glowed with Christmas trees and laughter. For once, I didn't feel like I was on the outside of it all. No emptiness. No ache. The next morning, I changed my number. No big post about it. No status update. Just a fresh contact list and peace. There was no big scene. No slamming doors. No shouting across the holidays. Just me, finally choosing quiet that didn't cost me anything. Before bed, I hung a small frame beside the door. It held a line I wrote weeks ago, "Let them forget you the way they once forgot to love you." Then I turned off the lights and walked into a life that finally felt mine.